This week on Moonshine and Music.
And had misery since you've been gone. Hello, trouble, 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 welcome home. Hello, trouble, 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 welcome home.
Van Halen is one of my favorite all-time groups, and
Sure.
my thought as I've gone to, I think, about 10 or so Van Halen concerts over the years is, why bring the gong if you're never going to hit it? Do you have like a deep insight onto that?
Yeah, but if you have the gong, you must hit the gong.
That's what I think.
You bang the gong, then you get it on.
Exactly.
That's how it's supposed to work.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 22 of Moonshine and Music. I'm your host, Joe Shelton, and today's guest is Jon Martin. He happens to be the father of the first guest of Moonshine and Music from episode 1, Megan Christine Martin, and we're going to have him on the show today, and you're going to like the interview a whole lot, especially if you really, really like music, because he does chat quite a bit about music, and it's a very good interview. I want to thank Brent Smith for hosting the show, and I want to thank Eat New Media. Go to eatnewmedia.com if you have some video needs. All right, let's get the show started. Here it comes right now, right here. Moonshine and Music starts now. All right, welcome to Moonshine and Music, Jon Martin.
Thank you.
It's very nice to meet you, and I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thanks.
So what we do here, if you haven't watched an episode, is that we kind of, try to get into the background of the artists.
Okay.
Have you watched a show?
I've watched bits and pieces, yes.
Okay. Well, that's good. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up, etc.?
Born in Acton, Indiana, where my dad grew up mostly, and then moved to Wanamaker, Indiana, through third grade. In between third grade and fourth grade, then my folks moved to Brookfield, which is just the other side of Shelby County, just like Marion County, Shelby County. Less than half a mile out of Marion County is where fourth grade on. My folks still live out there, and I tried staying there, or at least in the Indianapolis area, but I moved to Florida, tried Chattanooga, Tennessee on for size, came back to Indiana, and then I've been mostly in the Fountain Square area since 2001.
I see. So when you were you were rural Indiana, rural Indiana.
Rural Route 15 to be exact, yes.
I grew up on Rural Route 3 outside of Muncie, so I got that.
Okay. Yeah.
We have a little kindred spirit in that.
Yeah. There was a cow pasture beyond the backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had corn, a lot of it, but I can get with that. So when you were growing up, what did your parents do?
My dad worked at Ford. Retired from there better part of a decade ago. Mom was a homemaker, and then ended up working at a daycare, and then at the nearby elementary school where I went to school. She was there by the time I was in high school, working as an assistant for the kindergarten teacher in the reading lab. She was a history major in college, and I was surrounded by teachers and military. My dad had been a Marine before he was a Ford employee.
I see. So, when did you start getting into music? Was it
I don't remember not being into music. There's pictures of me with a ukulele at around 2. Got a guitar when I was 3 or 4, I guess. But I didn't know what I was doing until piano lessons in 3rd grade. Started playing drums in 6th grade. Not very well, but it helped me with reading rhythm charts and reading music in general. And then guitar by the time I was a freshman. I wanted to be Eddie Van Halen, like most kids in my age group. Actually, I wanted to be Alex Van Halen first, and then Eddie Van Halen.
So first it was the dream to be the drummer. And
I really wanted to be the drummer, and then I quickly realized that I just didn't have the necessary genes to be a drummer.
Well, the thing is, Van Halen is one of my favorite all-time groups, and
Sure.
my thought as I've gone to, I think, about 10 or so Van Halen concerts over the years, is why bring the gong if you're never going to hit it? Do you have like a deep insight onto that?
No, I get that. Actually, I met...
I want to just run up there and hit it. Just
Well, sure.
I don't even...
Have you ever had the chance to hit a gong?
Yeah.
Okay. I did the Gong Show on X103 one time. It's because Don Stuck from X103, well, formerly X103, now he's just on Q95, I believe. But Don lived right down the way, and he taught me all my early AC/DC riffs when I was a freshman, sophomore. But Don, and then it was Wank and O'Brien on X103 in the mornings. Mm-hmm. They needed a gong, and I worked for Mars Music at the time. So this is 98, 99, probably. And so I get the gong that we had at the store, and I take it to the station. And P.K. Lavengood, any idea who that is? Local guitar player, brilliant musician. Grabbed my mandolin once, played it upside down, was playing the, college pipe horn or something like that. It was the Popeye theme song. Upside down on my mandolin. Very impressive. There's no way I'm going to gong P.K. Lavengood. It just wasn't going to happen. And that's how I met Ed Wank. Long way to go. Yeah, but if you have the gong, you must hit the gong. That's
what I think.
You bang the gong, then you get it on.
Exactly.
That's how it's supposed to work.
If somehow I had a way to get Alex Van Halen on Moonshine and Music, the first question I would ask is, why the hell do you never hit the gong?
Or why the hell won't you call Sammy Hagar back?
That too.
Yeah.
Because, I'm a Sammy Hagar fan as well.
Sure.
So,
Standing Hampton, it was the dirtiest album title at the time.
Yeah. Well,
3 lock boxes
until they did fuck,
Sure.
Which was a little more. But
for unlawful carnal knowledge.
Yeah, that's a brilliant thing.
You just cursed on my radio hour here,
Well, we have an E for explicit. I gotta exercise it once in a while.
Sure.
So, we can get into the weeds with Van Halen, but this is about you.
All right. So, really quick, Van Halen held my interest from elementary school. Well, the preacher's kid down the street, his older brother, Ron, pulled us into the bedroom. He's like, you guys have to hear this. And it was Beautiful Girls and Ice Cream Man by Van Halen.
Oh.
That's what changed my everything. But then it was a couple years later, I was at Karma Records in Greenwood, that's not there anymore, at County Line Mall, and I got the first Fabulous Thunderbirds album on album. And I just listened to it again the other day. I love that album, and that was the one that, as far as Van Halen changing everything, it was Jimmy Vaughn that really made my playing change, made me want to be better. It was tasteful, it wasn't over the top, nothing against Stevie Ray Vaughan, but Jimmy Vaughn was the one. And then through that, it was Steve Cropper from Booker T and the MGs and Stax Volt albums. James Burton with Ricky Nelson, and later Elvis, Emmylou Harris, James Burton, Steve Cropper, those are the guys. They all played Telecasters.
Right.
Therefore, that's what I needed in my life. And it was 1999 in Portland, Oregon, when I got a real Telecaster. I had had one built in 91 out of spare parts. And, Tellies.
I have one too. So I get it.
Yeah.
as you talked about that, you mentioned the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and I saw them live with Bob Seger at Market Square Arena in '87.
Oh, wow.
And the thing that I mostly remember about the show was that for some reason the people in the first three rows kept getting naked. The women did, okay. and getting thrown out. And they brought one of the ladies down the aisle, and I was sitting on the aisle about 30 rows from the stage with a friend of mine. And they're bringing her out like for all four limbs because she doesn't want to go out.
Sure.
So there's like four of them carrying her out, and somebody reaches out and grabs her breast.
Oh.
And then one of them, and then she started like getting really violent with them, and one of them lost hold of her.
Yeah.
And he grabbed the dude that grabbed her, and he like beat the snot out of him, then dragged him down the aisle by his shirt out the door. and I'm like, I've never forgotten that.
Yeah.
But the Fabulous Thunderbirds didn't miss a beat. There were people getting thrown out left and right. They just kept playing, and they were wonderful. So
Well, that's the sign of true professionalism.
Yeah,
don't let
they were
anything
noticing.
affect it.
You know what I mean? There's these naked
sure.
people up front and whatever.
Show me a musician playing that type of venue that hasn't seen a naked
person
had a moment of nudity.
in the front row, right?
Yeah, and you just move on. You acknowledge and move on.
It was a different era for sure, though.
87, yeah. I saw many shows. Market Square Arena? Yeah, I missed that venue.
Yeah.
I saw all my first shows there.
Me too. What was the first show you ever went to?
Talked about this
You
last
were
night.
going with that.
Buddy of mine, David, yesterday was his birthday. And we're essentially the same age. He's got 8 months on me, I pointed out last night. But we share the first concert experience. The headliner was Quiet Riot on the Condition Critical tour.
Sweet.
Yeah. White Snake on the Slide It In tour. Now, if memory serves, and I could be wrong, but probably not. I'm pretty good at this. John Lord was playing keyboards from Deep Purple. John Sykes on guitar, for sure. That was the mind-blowing thing. I think it was Cozy Powell on drums, but it could have been Ian Pace. But I'm going with Cozy Powell. Neil Murray on bass, and then Coverdale. And I did not know what to expect, because the only thing I had heard was Still the Night once, and I knew that was, pretty killer. But it was the Live in the Heart of the City album when they were still a blues band. It was essentially David Coverdale's variation on Deep Purple. And I loved it, but it was really bluesy. And they came out and it was, it was cock rock. His microphone is phallic instrument. It was really intimidating and killer. And he had that voice then that just couldn't be stopped. It was a lot of fun. But the opening band was Armored Saint.
Armored Saint.
Armored
Wow.
Saint.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, their lead guitar player got leukemia and died a couple years later, and they were really fun. It was just so different. It wasn't the metal or the rock that I was used to. It was Judas Priest, Armored Saint, or Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, if that was metal at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know what hard metal really was.
Well, metal, kind of shifted a little bit into like 4 categories, and then people stopped calling some things that would have been called metal later.
But then you had your Anthrax, and John Bush was the lead singer in Armored Saint. He became the lead singer of Anthrax later on. Great voice, but totally not Joey Belladonna. That's right. I know my metal singers.
You're testing my old time knowledge here. I'm feeling a little inferior.
I will double dog dare anyone at Trivial Pursuit.
If we have to do 80s metal band trivia, you're gonna kill me. Is that what I'm saying?
That's what
I want you on my team. That's what I need.
Yeah, that's exactly what you mean. Yeah, you do.
So
music in general, I do not have the encyclopedic knowledge. It's just, I really love that stuff. And I quickly learned that there's good music and there's bad music, and I just want the good stuff. And that can be the Beastie Boys and Run DMC, it can be Anthrax, it can be John Hartford, it can be whatever, but, don't bore me. Oh, and, there was a thread going around I think it was even, last night or today, it was when it started, they were talking about David Allan Coe singing Tennessee Whiskey. It's like, no, he can't, no. David Allan Coe, give me George Jones any day. I'm fine with that. But, yeah, I will never understand the fascination with that guy.
David Allan Coe?
David Allan Coe.
I think it's just the one song, honestly. The You Don't Have to Call Me Darlin', Darlin'.
Sure.
I mean, I'm from my perspective, and I'm kind of a country guy.
Right.
David Allan Coe is only known for that.
He didn't even write it.
I know, but that's what he's known for.
Yeah. Steve Goodman and the underappreciated John Prine, and Prine didn't even take a writing credit on that. There's your useless knowledge for the day.
See, I'm really in trouble in trivia because I didn't know Prine had contributed at all.
Yeah, that was his guy, Steve Goodman and John Prine.
Yeah, that's a classic song.
Yeah, absolutely.
That if you play it in any bar right now, it will wake people up.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is an interesting thing. As you got older and you started writing songs, when did that start happening for you?
I've never really called myself a writer, even though I do write. I kind of enjoyed, reinterpreting and moving stuff around. I've just always written. I always keep a journal. I have a notebook in my guitar case now. Sometimes it's just a line or two. Sometimes it's, a few paragraphs. But it's usually stream of consciousness. What I learned in high school with my creative writing moments, I guess, was that writing more than I could at any given time was a bad thing, because then I'd just start babbling. So it was like, write a note, forget about it, leave it alone. And remember Crowded House?
Yeah.
Neil Finn, it was him and his brother, Mr. Finn.
Ooh, we stumped him.
Yeah. Tim Finn. Neil Finn was the guy that I was reading about. He was talking about doing the same type of thing. He was like, I'm no good at just writing out a whole song. He's like, sure, if it comes, great. But if it's, a line or two here, great. And then I can put it all together, put it on a computer, and then figure out this line works with this line and this line works with that line. And it's like putting together a puzzle. So I've got stuff that I wrote 20 years ago that I forgot about. And sometimes going back through things, it's like, oh, and it'll trigger something, and I'll write a little bit more. But I've also been really fortunate. I, at an early age, I met Frank Dean. Mm-hmm. I was about 18, and maybe just the other side of 18. He and Bill Schaefer had Guitar Town, and they had just opened it up. Then meeting him, Mike Redman, who wrote for the Indie News and then the Indie Star. He was the music critic way back then. And Ralph Jeffers. Mike, I don't know that he writes music, but I always enjoyed his stories and his short stories specifically. But Frank and Ralph, it's like you're hanging out with two of the better writers in the city. Why am I going to write? But then I realized that was pretty stupid, and I needed to keep writing, at least for my own personal joy. Even if I wasn't doing anything with that, I could still write. And then I could hold it up against their stuff. Also a mistake, but, you write the way you write.
Well, and I think that's a tough thing. A lot of sweat. I think it's a tough thing to compare your writing to someone else's in general, because everything's different. It isn't better or worse to me. And I know that Frank feels that way when I've talked to him about it once.
Oh, sure.
He was like, he doesn't care about how his music stacks up against other people's.
Right. And he's wired differently than I am. When I would go to him for advice, and we worked together at IRC in 1991. So I would have been 21, had gotten to know him pretty well at that point. And just got better and better over the years. He's my big brother. He just is. He can't fight it. I can't fight it. That's who he is. He informed me about Dylan. It's like, I can't stand Dylan's voice. this was me at 21. It's like, how do I listen to this guy? He's like, oh, well.
I'm with you now.
Yeah.
So,
but I love Dylan now.
well, I love Dylan, but his voice, I mean, I want anybody else to sing it.
After 3 or 4 songs, I need a break, and then I can go listen to, Chris Christopherson. And he's slightly out of tune a lot. But there's something about that. It's quirky, I guess, is the word. But
well, I like Dylan, honestly, his singing in the 60s was better than, like, when I hear him now. Like, a more, because his voice is just kind of gone to me,
I don't know. I've seen him live.
When he was younger, you could understand him. And
I've only seen him in person live twice, and both shows were totally different. Once at Market Square Arena with Joni Mitchell. That didn't suck.
Probably not.
No. And then I saw A Night with Dylan and his band in Lafayette. And both shows were so good. And they were totally different. And very similar band. But it was nice to hear his interpretation of his own songs. And you don't know which version you're going to get. It's kind of like... And I've never seen the Grateful Dead. True story, I've never seen the Grateful Dead. Wherever the camera is, never. That, and I just don't think I could stand the crowd. It's kind of like a Dave Matthews Band thing. Don't want to be around that crowd. It causes anxiety. I feel claustrophobic. If I'm on stage, great. If I'm in the crowd, I'm suffocating. But
I have been see the Dead and Company. I didn't see the Grateful Dead,
But every show's different. I've listened to a jillion variations of the Dick's Pick stuff and the other bootlegs, and it's going to be a different solo. Sugar Magnolia is not going to sound the same in '74 as it did in '82, whatever.
Right.
And I like that. I think that there's a lot of artists that get stuck doing their song the same way every time. But then you go see, Dylan, the Dead, Tom Petty, sure, it's a lot like another version of it, but there's a slight difference. It's that moment in time.
Well, that's an interesting, one that comes to mind that I know of a record that was like that was Bon Jovi. He put out a record called This Left Feels Right or something, and he took all of his hit songs and played them like totally different, like strange versions, and they were like way cooler than the originals. It was really cool. It was like, what? How did,
in their time, I saw them live with Rat, and it was the Slippery When Wet tour, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they were great live. I saw them in like '89 or so, and they were.
My hair will do that. If
you can make it look like
I
Bon
can
Jovi?
make it. Yeah, not that I would ever, but yeah.
Can you do the short version of that though? Like what he has now going?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen him in years.
He's got like a really short kind of feathered thing going.
He's a billionaire. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I just want his money. I don't care about the hair.
You know what? If he's a happy guy with it, great, good for him. But he hasn't been on my radar in a long time.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
Wow, we're being under siege from airplanes.
Saturday in Indiana.
There you go. When so you were talking about hanging out with Frank, and I know you did.
Sure.
You were in a band together. It was Sindicato.
We still are.
You still are.
We still are.
Okay. Are you guys playing a lot?
No. No. We never really broke up. We just stopped playing. We do a reunion show, or we've done a reunion show every year for the last 5 years now. 4 years, 5 years, at the Jazz Kitchen. Sindicato, when they started, that was '95, and that was going to be Frank's solo album. And then he had Gary Wasson and Jason Roller, Gary singing and playing bass. Jason was playing, mandolin, fiddle, and guitar at least, if not more. Then Andrew Faye, she sang on a song there, and there's probably 2 or 3 other artists on that album, Appalachian Pipeline, that I know I'm forgetting 3 or 4 people at least anyway. But that came out in '95. I moved back here in July '96, 22 years ago this week. And Frank was one of the first people I looked up. I would have been 26. And I played in Broad Ripple this past Thursday night at Flatwater. And I'm in the green room, which is the house next door, which is the old Valentine Guitar Company, where Frank was, running it. And I didn't realize it until I'm sitting down there looking around. I'm like, I know this room. It's like, wow, I was in this room. And then I thought about the timing. It's like 22 years ago. This is the week. Yeah. I've been playing with him. Well, I played with him in 91. I was a horrible bass player in his band with Ralph Jeffers at One Liners Comedy Club. Played there a few times. And then I moved away to Florida about a year and a half later. Then came back in 96 and started playing with Frank pretty much from that moment on. He handed me my Syndicato cassette, CD, and T-shirt. He's like, just learn all the songs. You're going to be in the band at some point. And yeah, and 22 years later, like I say, it's still going. We have at least, I think there's a CD worth of material that could come out, and outtakes, stuff we never put out on album, CD, whatever.
How many Syndicato albums are there?
Well, Appalachian Pipeline, then Syndicato, which is the Black Album is how we refer to it. That was recorded in 98, came out New Year's Day of 99. Logan County, that was our big deal album. The Gospel Plow, that I feel like got us in more trouble than we deserved. Yeah, a bunch of heathens doing gospel music that we all grew up on and love, but, we're horrible people. Then Frank's solo album, And Back Again, and that was essentially a Syndicato album, but Frank had complete control over that. That's his album. So we can call that 5. And then, wait a minute, did I get that right? Appalachian Pipeline, Syndicato, Logan County, Gospel Plow, The Chord. And that was our last album. Gary Wasson was not in the band. We had Brent Bennett playing bass, singing, writing some tunes, and Mike Brown on keyboards and singing. And yeah, so we went from an album that kind of invokes the band. The first album was kind of folky country. Then Syndicato, the Black Album, that's the band album. Logan County was bluegrass. Gospel Plow was gospel bluegrass radio hour. That was the premise. People thought we were making fun of gospel radio, and we weren't. We were having fun with it, but we weren't making fun of it. That was not the intent at all. And then The Chord, which is country R&B. And
so are you guys doing a hip-hop album next? Or?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, if you know what, hip-hop invokes so many different, genres of music and thought of different genres. Did you ever see Sirius Black? Mm-hmm. Man, he's good. I love the way he works a crowd. If I could get that into the music we're doing, great. Russ from the Mud Kids, Rusty Redenbacher, Russ Johnson. He's another one. I love the way he works the crowd. The guy is just so full of really good, fun energy. We've known each other casually since, I met him in 91 and when I was working at IRC, and not the Mud Kids, the Birdmen of Alcatraz were a big deal. And him and Dino just blew my mind. Man, that was fun. But if I could, get that type of energy into a country-ish rock show, that'd be fun. So yeah, I would do a hip-hop album. I've recorded, I've gone into the studio to record guitar parts that were going to be used on a hip-hop album. That's as close as I've gotten.
Well, we have recently, we've been filming some shows today. We just had a hip hop artist on that filmed like right in front of you, and you're right about the energy.
Yeah.
There's a really good energy there. Yeah,
and if I'm going to go see a show, I want to be not part of the show, but I want that good vibe. I want that, a show that picks you up and carries you along. That's a lot more fun than just a good listening room show is fine by me, don't get me wrong. But if it's morose and just bringing me down, I don't want to be there.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So, what have you been working on lately?
Well, Gary Wasson from Syndicato, Ryan Shore, and myself, we have a trio called Scarlet Water, which is wine. It came from the Fair and Young song "Wine Me Up," and Scarlet Water is our trio. Gary and I have never really stopped playing together. We might have paused a couple of times, but we still work together a lot. We're working on stuff. He's got a couple of songs, I've got a couple of songs. Just need to, keep playing a little bit, save some money, and see what happens. It's easy to record a CD these days, right?
No, it's hard work, but
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of equipment out there that can help you along in the process.
Yes.
However, I would say that it's very hard. Probably not as hard as when, 1997 or whatever, when you're using probably tape machines and having to get it perfect. But
That helps, yeah. Yeah, we were still recording on tape, 98, with the Black Album. Of course, we were working with Mark Johnson, and Mark and Eric Johnson, rather, at the Pop Machine, so we didn't have to do nothing. We had the two Brainiac twins, there to push us along and help us along and remind us that it was just a moment in time and it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be how it sounded at that moment in time. Also, really great advice.
well, now it doesn't have to be perfect. You can put all
You
sorts
can
of
fix
stuff
it.
together.
Yeah, and I've heard those albums and I don't like them. That's how you end up with Florida Georgia Line or
Well,
Godsmack or Nickelback, and yeah.
You're not a fan of Nickelback?
I'm not a fan of plastic music. So no, I'm not a Nickelback fan. Or Creed, although Mark Tremonti's really nice. Met him at the music stores. Nice guy, can't stand the music. There's a lot of stuff out there that I don't want to hear, that people love.
I saw, Sammy Hagar has that rock and roll road show or whatever. Have you
Okay.
seen that show?
No.
He goes and meets up and interviews artists, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And he did one with Nickelback, and that was the best performance I've ever seen them give. I mean, I was like, why you guys really need to put out an acoustic record. I just wanted to scream it through the TV, because they look like real musicians that day. And I think if people
all right.
see that, they would be like, wow. These guys really have some talent.
When you've got a band that's creating music, great. When you've got a band that's just creating product, it's insincere, or it comes off that way at least. I've heard Nickelback's recorded work. I just don't get it. Live, they might be wonderful. Acoustic, they might be great. It's like, I don't want to hear a lot of REO Speedwagon, but I love some of those songs.
Oh, I love
grew
REO
up on that.
They're one of my faves too.
But they haven't had a hit, or they haven't had a new album
in years. Yeah. Well, really, they put out, I think, maybe one album without Gary Richrath, or two.
and that's okay.
I think that,
Dave Amato's brilliant.
Gary and Kevin were such, dynamic writers together.
Sure.
I think that their writing just kind of fell off after they split.
Well, sure, you've got someone that's a folk singer
It's also
writing
probably hard to write with a guy
the
like
power ballads. Then you've got a guy that's the crazy rock and roll dude who's drunk, and that seemed to be Gary Richrath. Maybe they work together really well. I don't know, David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen.
that. They didn't work together well, but they put together good music.
They put together great music. I love that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I think you'd find that there's a lot of songwriting teams that have that differential. They have that thing that makes it work until it doesn't, and when it doesn't in a
Well,
fabulous way.
I think Sammy and Eddie were really great for each other. I thought
Sure.
they wrote some of the best music together.
Yeah.
And even though that obviously didn't turn out well.
Yeah. I've gone back and listened to some of that stuff. OU812, 5150. Some of the production sounds dated now. The keyboard sounds are awful. There's some of the Michael Jackson stuff in the 80s I don't want to hear anymore either. But in its time, great.
Yeah, I think they're great songs. I've heard, like I played Dreams in my set, the Van Halen song.
Sure.
But we play it acoustic, and it's just so different.
Yeah.
But you know, when you're looking at like the album Balance, you know, and all of the songs on it, which was their last real album together with Sammy.
Okay.
You know, with Amsterdam on it, and Can't Stop Loving You, and you know, they did a lot of cool, different things with that record, and then suddenly they were away with the wind because they couldn't get along.
Then you got Gary Sharon.
That was terrible.
Yeah. He had a great voice. Probably still does.
He has a great voice. He just doesn't.
It wasn't a Van Halen album.
Yeah.
Well,
totally
if you called it a Eddie Van Halen solo album with someone else singing a lead, maybe it would have been better.
It would have been easier to stomach. I think some of the instrumentals on that album are really great, but it just didn't work for me as a Van Halen fan.
Sure.
Anyway, what are you going to play for us today?
Well, that's a guitar. I've got a ukulele and a mandolin. What do you want to hear?
So we're going to, all right, whatever you want to do is good. We're ready for some music, though, so let's get it together. What do you say? All right, thanks for coming in today. We're going to hook you up.
You're going to hook me up or mic it up?
Well, we're going to hook it up. So
okay.
We'll be right back with more Moonshine and Music and Jon Martin Live. Thank you. Next week on Moonshine and Music, we have Mikey Good from RecipesThatCrock.com, you know, or as good as it gets on YouTube. He is a fantastic musician, a great songwriter, and he cooks up some incredible recipes. And you'll get to hear his music, which sounds like this.
Well, it's Saturday night, we're out on the town, and I don't even notice anybody else around, because baby, I only got my eyes on you. Yeah, you
Woke up this morning, happy as can be. Looked at my window, what's that I see? Coming up the sidewalk, just plain as day. Well, here comes trouble, and I never thought I'd see you since you went away. Hello, trouble, come on in. Talk about heartache, where in the world you been? Ain't had misery since you've been gone. Hello, trouble, 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 welcome home. We'll make a pot of coffee, you can rest your shoes. You can tell me them sweet lies, and I'll listen to you. It's just a little part of the life we've lived. Though I'd rather have a little bit of trouble than never fall in love again. Hello, trouble, come on in. Talk about heartache, where in the world you've been? Ain't had no misery since you've been gone. Hello, trouble, 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 welcome home. Hello, trouble, 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 welcome home. Yeah! All right, now. This is a Billy Joe Shaver song, and it was a big influence on me, having other people singing around me. And then I heard it in other tunes. Bob Schneider, Texas singer-songwriter, I heard him do a song that reminded me way too much of it, and stuck it back in my head. And I I started performing it after I wasn't playing with Frank full time. So Gary and I have just kind of taken it aboard as one of our own. It was a rainy Wednesday morning. That's the day that I was born in that old sharecropper's one-room country shack. They said my mama left me the same day that she had me. She hit the road, never once looked back. I just thought I'd mention my grandma's old age pension. That's the reason I'm standing here today. I got all my country learning, milking and churning, picking cotton, raising hell and baling hay. I've been to Georgia on a fast train, honey. I was born yesterday. Got a good Christian raising and an 8th grade education. Ain't no need in treating me this way. Well, oh, sweet Carolina, I don't guess I'll never find another woman put together like you are. You got that wiggle in your walking and that big city talking and that brand new shiny Plymouth ragtop car. Well, it's hurry up and wait in this world of give and take. It seems like haze that makes for ways every time. So I'm praying to my soul when I hear that angel's roll. You know I'm gonna get my share of mine. I've been to Georgia on a fast train, honey. I wasn't born yesterday. I got a good Christian raising and an 8th grade education. Ain't no need in treating me this way. Well, there ain't no need in treating me this way. I stood alone with tears in my eyes and watched as you packed up and left with most of my life. And I wondered when I woke tomorrow which one of us I despise. I stood alone with tears in my eyes. I walked the streets, lonely and lost. I noticed the lines there around me and pondered the cost. There's a bridge between having and wanting, and those who are trying to cross. I walk the streets, lonely and lost. There's a time when we all think of walking away and leaving the world far behind. But there's places and people and things yet to meet further ahead down the line. I sat and watched, stripped of my pride, from the look in a poor woman's eyes as she held her child. It was hope, and hope was something that I never thought to try. I walked the streets with tears in my eyes. I stood alone
Thanks a lot, Jon Martin. Thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate having you here. Tune in next week when we're going to have Mikey Good on the show. You will really love Mikey. If you haven't seen him already, go to recipes.croc.com or check out As Good As It Gets on YouTube before the show next week so you'll have like a little baseline of what we're talking about. Really, really good show next week. Thanks again to Eat New Media, our broadcast partner, and to Brent Smith. And we are out of here this week. Thanks for watching Moonshine and Music. Moonshine and Music is a presentation of Eat New Media in association with Notlehs Entertainment. Producers for today's program are Brandon Lay and Joe Shelton. Be sure to join us next time on Moonshine and Music.